Hey everyone, tonight we're stepping into a forgotten world, one wrapped in silk and silence, where beauty was duty and survival meant smiling through secrets. So find a quiet place, let the shadows settle, and join me as we imagine what life might have been like. Not as a queen or a noble, but as one of ancient Egypt's most elusive figures, a royal concubine. The sky brightens over the Nile, casting soft gold onto the palace walls. Inside, the women of the harem are already awake, not because they were summoned, but because the morning waits for no one, especially not those whose futures hinge on appearances. You're among them, your eyes barely open before a servant's soft whisper pierces your dreams. Those wild, private dreams filled with impossible romances and endless figs, and tells you that, alas, you look a little puffy today. And so begins your day. There's no lingering in bed, no indulgent stretching or quiet reflection. You rise because you must, because even if the Pharaoh never lays eyes on you, your role remains. You're not simply a woman in linen. You are property of the court, a vessel of beauty and promise, a physical embodiment of national wealth and power. Your time is not your own. Your body isn't either. As you sit upright, linen sheets folding away like petals, a bronze mirror is placed before you, not for vanity, but for inspection. How's your skin today? Do your eyes still curve with youth? Are your lips full, softly colored, free of cracks? These are not idle observations. In the brutal, quiet competition of the harem, the smallest flaw might shift your rank from perhaps tonight to never again. Posture is next. Not to stretch your body, but to refine it. You practice walking with a bowl of rose water balanced atop your head, a routine as common as breathing. It's not meant to be comfortable. It's meant to train your neck, your gait, your presence, to present you not as a person, but as a sculpture, alive and flawless. Breakfast arrives, though it's more of a performance than a meal. You receive a few dates, 2 halves of a pomegranate seed, perhaps a sliver of fig. It is not meant to nourish. It's designed to keep you light and lovely. The room is quiet, save for the rustle of sheer linen and the whispered silences of dozens of other women playing the same game. You chew slowly, elegantly, always aware of who's watching and how long they blink. A servant reappears. She suggests a cooling cloth for your under eyes. It's not concern, it's code. Translation. You look tired. Perhaps your rival next to you is better rested, or perhaps she simply hides it better. You nod, accepting the lavender-scented cloth not for comfort, but because it helps you maintain the illusion. And that's what today, and every day, is about. Illusion. Bathing follows. Not a soak of leisure or cleanliness, but a process of purification. You're guided into a chamber that smells of crushed lotus, citrus oils, and anticipation. The bath isn't just warm, it's symbolic. This is your daily transformation from woman to ornament, from soul to surface. Attendants scrub you with natron powder, scouring away not just dead skin, but any trace of your past. Dust from the village you once came from, innocence, rebellion, all of it must be erased. Then comes the hair, or rather, its removal. Below the eyebrows, nothing is permitted. Body hair is seen as vulgar, base, and animalistic. So you submit wax, tweezers, razors, whatever it takes to become smooth as alabaster, polished as temple stone. You wince, but not too much. To complain is to appear weak, and you can't afford weakness. Once stripped, you are oiled. Almond oil, thick and rich, is poured generously across your skin. You're massaged by expert hands, not for your pleasure, but for visual effect. You must shimmer. The shine of your limbs may be the only detail a royal eye catches in passing. Your skin must speak before your voice ever can. Perfume is layered, not dabbed. First a musky base, then a brighter citrus note, and finally something floral and divine. You are now a breathing fragrance, and should the Pharaoh walk past and inhale sharply, let's hope it's not from allergies, but from the scent of ambition. Dressed in linen once more, semi-transparent and calculatedly seductive, you're told to sit very still so the oils may settle. What this means, of course, is don't ruin the work. You are a painting now. Let the paint dry. Face assembly is next. You sit before a mirror again, this time not to assess, but to construct. A cosmetics assistant arrives with a palette that would rival any artist's: powders, pastes, crushed beetles, ground minerals. The eyeliner, dark and deliberate, is applied like a sacred text. It must extend just so, curving like a falcon's eye, sharp enough to cut air. Lips are painted not red, but fertile. Ochre and fat mixed into a sticky balm, meant to convey temptation with humility, a contradiction that becomes your daily mask. Cheeks are dusted. Eyebrows combed with ivory tools, shaped into symbols of dignity and control. No one knows when or why certain brow shapes became fashionable, but here, conformity is safety. Your appearance now complete, you are admired by those paid to admire. Radiant, they say. Nearly divine. But the key word is nearly. You are never quite enough. Just close. Breakfast number 2 arrives, not because you're hungry, but because the morning has passed. A small portion of dates, a dab of yogurt, and, as always, the expectation of elegance. Everyone eats, but no one eats. Words are spoken, but none have meaning. Compliments come loaded with venom, smiles with warning. And as you chew slowly, a single fig seed left artfully on your lip, the unspoken mantra pulses beneath it all. Be seen. Be silent. Be perfect. The moment breakfast ends, another performance begins. This one doesn't involve powders or perfumes. It demands silence, stillness, and the ability to radiate mystique without moving too much. You enter what is known, without irony, as the relaxation gallery. But there is no relaxing here, only a slow, aching theater of composure. The room is carefully arranged, silk cushions in patterns of symmetry, soft light filtering through carved screens, just enough shadow to flatter the cheekbones, just enough openness to observe. You take your place, settling into a pose that suggests serenity, fertility, and boredom touched with grace. You're not bored, of course. You're calculating. You always are. Every woman here is performing. Some gaze into the distance, pretending to think deep, poetic thoughts. Others gently finger a harp string or lift a lotus blossom to their nose like it holds secrets from the gods. One girl lets her sandals slip off just so, implying spontaneity. Another sighs dramatically, perhaps about love, or perhaps because her back aches from yesterday's sitting. No one knows, and that's the point. Here, subtlety is a weapon. A well-timed glance or a carefully revealed ankle might say more than 1,000 declarations. You are not allowed to ask for attention. You are permitted only to suggest that it would be an honor for them to offer it. The younger ones, still drunk on the dream of affection, try too hard. They pose like statues that know they're being carved. They laugh too easily, gesture too grandly. The older concubines don't flinch. They've seen dozens like this rise and fade. They understand that the true game is not about being obvious. It's about being seen when no one's supposed to be looking. Occasionally, a scribe or a court official passes through. No one reacts, but everyone adjusts. A slight turn of the chin here, a tilt of the wrist there. The entire room breathes in unison like a single, delicate organism trained to seduce by existing. You shift into the light, but casually. Never too eager. You let your gaze drift, not toward the man, but past him, like he's just a leaf floating on your stream of thought. He might remember you. He might mention you. That's all you need. 2 hours pass like this. You have done nothing measurable. You have spoken no words, but your presence has whispered constantly. See me, wonder about me, want to know more. This is the art of concubinage. Not merely beauty, but the illusion of effortlessness. And today, your illusion held. But beauty isn't enough. Not here, not anymore. You are escorted to a different chamber now, one with wide windows, shallow benches, and instructors dressed in finer linen than most scribes. This is your education, not in philosophy or governance, of course, but in just enough poetry, music, and mythology to decorate your company without threatening anyone. It's the finishing school for Pharaoh's unseen wives. Your lessons begin with music. Harp strings are plucked, and your fingers are guided into position. Music here is not for joy. It's for seduction. A well-played melody can linger in a ruler's ear long after the girl is forgotten. You're taught love songs passed down from priestesses and river maidens, lyrics that promise devotion without demanding it. You're told to sway but not dance, to emote but not indulge. Every note you strike is expected to carry the weight of controlled passion. Next, poetry. Not composing it, that's too clever, but reciting it. Lines written by men centuries ago are placed in your mouth like jewels. My longing pours like the Nile, you murmur, and try not to laugh. It's absurd, this pretense, but your life depends on mastering it. If he asks for a verse someday, you must deliver it with a tear glistening in your eye and none in your voice. You're also taught how to speak of dreams. Dreams are currency in the palace. Soft lies wrapped in mysticism. A dream about the Pharaoh is worth more than perfume. A dream about gods. Dangerous if mishandled, but powerful if you say the right name. One girl claimed to dream of the queen handing her lotus flowers. No one believes her, but she hasn't had to wait in line for bath oil since. Then come the sacred names, the gods and their traits, Thoth for wisdom, Anubis for strength, Ra for power. You memorize the associations not out of belief, but out of necessity. Should the king ask which god you revere most, the answer is always, whichever one he most resembles that day. Choose poorly, and you're a fool. Choose wisely, and you're clever, but not too clever. That's a line you must never cross. At the end of your schooling, there's a game. Light, seemingly harmless. The instructors ask, what would you say if the Pharaoh compared your voice to a dove's? The answer must be demure, poetic, and flattering, never boastful, never dismissive. You say, then I hope to sing only for him, and smile as instructed. You are not here to impress. You are here to be remembered, just enough to be summoned. But beauty and knowledge alone won't save you. Elegance must be rehearsed like a soldier practices sword play. Afternoons are for movement, not exercise, not relaxation, but refinement. You learn to walk again, not like a girl or a farmer's daughter, but like someone who might one day be seen crossing a marble floor with fate behind her. You balance clay jars on your head, water threatening to spill with each misstep. You're taught to glide, not walk, to drift, not step. Every motion must say, I belong in temples. You kneel again and again until your knees bruise just to perfect the angle of your reverence. You extend your arms, learning how to offer wine like a goddess, never like a servant. You practice how to turn, how to bow your head, how to raise your eyes, not in submission, but in suggestion. Then the voice work. You say, my lord, 20 times, each with a different intention. Adoration, shyness, playfulness, mild disdain, but artfully disguised. Your voice is trained to linger like incense, soft, warm, inviting. Words are weapons now, used sparingly, never loudly, never thoughtlessly. By late afternoon, your body aches, your fingers cramp, your back stiffens. But you're told you've improved, you walk prettier, you speak sweeter. You've mastered another layer of the role. There is no applause, only a quiet nod and the knowledge that tomorrow you must do it all again. Now comes the least official, yet most important, part of the day, the gathering. Not the kind with songs or rituals, but the quiet convergence of concubines in shared chambers. A low hum of gossip rises from embroidered cushions. Eyes dart, smiles stretch, secrets float through the air like perfume. This is where power is passed, not through command, but through information. You join a circle threading beads, but you're not here to craft. You're here to listen. Someone mentions a servant dropping a fruit bowl in front of a scribe. In moments, the story morphs. Maybe it wasn't an accident. Maybe she slipped, or maybe she wanted him to notice. Maybe they're meeting in secret. Someone else murmurs about a girl who's been quieter since her sandal fitting. Why? What changed? The group doesn't ask directly. They imply, they infer. They build the shape of truth from shadows. The older women say little. They already know everything. They don't waste words. They weigh them. When they speak, others lean in. If one of them says the Pharaoh had honeyed wine instead of date wine last night, that's not trivia. That's strategy. You contribute sparingly. Too much, and you become a threat. Too little, and you vanish. You offer a vague observation about the Queen's cousin looking tense. Nothing inflammatory, but just enough to be interesting. You've learned the rules. Speak without speaking. Confess without admitting. Smile at everyone. Trust no one. Because here, information is the most seductive thing of all. The palace dims as the sun begins to bow behind the hills. Shadows lengthen across marble corridors, and oil lamps flicker to life. This is the hour of whispers, the moment when everything becomes possible and nothing is promised. You are escorted, along with dozens of others, to the waiting chamber. It is a room soaked in luxury, gilded pillars, sweet-smelling incense, cushions as soft as rumor. But make no mistake, this is not a sanctuary. It is a stage, and every woman here is performing for a man who may never appear. You choose your seat with care, near the window perhaps, so the dying light kisses your cheekbones just right. You've tested this placement before. You know how it flatters the hollow of your throat, how the linen robe you wear will catch the orange glow like divine approval. You don't want to be obvious. You want to be unforgettable, if seen. Around you, the others settle into place. There are only a few acceptable poses. Serene but welcoming, poised but passive, radiant but uninvested. No one fidgets. No one slouches. No one shows need. That is the true art here, appearing at peace while silently screaming for attention. A servant enters. Every head lifts, not quickly, just enough to mark the moment. Is she calling a name? Is this the beginning of the night for one of you? No. She's carrying a fruit tray. Grapes, honey, sliced pomegranate. You exhale slowly, calmly. Not disappointed, just waiting. Always waiting. Minutes stretch into hours. The air thickens. Someone hums a melody, soft and haunting. A girl nearby pretends to read a love poem, holding the papyrus just high enough that her perfect profile is visible to anyone passing. Another picks at her harp, fingers trembling from nerves she refuses to admit. No one speaks of the Pharaoh directly. That would break the spell. Every 15 minutes you shift your position, not to rest, but to revive circulation. Should your name be called, you'll need to stand, walk, and bow with grace. There can be no limp, no stumble, no sign that you've been frozen for hours on a silk pillow trying not to blink too often. The silence is not quiet. It hums with desperation. At last, a name is spoken. It's not yours. A girl you barely know rises as if in a trance. Her steps are light, her face glowing with triumph and fear. She leaves barefoot, perfumed, and impossibly smug. Behind her, the room holds its breath, then resumes its perfect stillness. No one weeps, no one sighs, but something inside each of you deflates, like a reed flute left unplayed. You smile, of course. That's what you've been trained to do, smile through joy, through envy, through collapse. You sip wine, just enough to taste, not enough to numb, and pretend it doesn't burn your throat. You offer a kind glance to the girl next to you, even as a small voice inside wonders if your eyeliner was crooked, if your lips looked too dry, if the perfume you wore was too strong or not strong enough. He didn't come, but he might tomorrow, and that's the most dangerous thought of all. You return to your chamber. Your jewelry comes off first, anklets, earrings, necklaces like delicate chains of status. Then your cosmetics, wiped away gently, layer by layer, until the mask fades and the woman beneath reemerges. Tired, quiet, still beautiful, but with no audience. Your second bath is quick, more symbolic than cleansing. You wash away the hope, not the sweat. You lie on your mat in the cool evening breeze, face turned toward the ceiling. A ceiling you've memorized, line by line, crack by crack, the same one you stared at last night. And the night before. From the upper chambers, music drifts. Laughter, a harp. Maybe it's her playing. Maybe he's listening. Maybe she'll return tomorrow with a new scent on her skin and a story she won't tell. You close your eyes and whisper to yourself, maybe tomorrow. You've said that every night for weeks, and so, once again, you sleep without being chosen. You dream, not just of the Pharaoh, but of escape, of walking outside without permission, of choosing your own robe, of eating until you're full, of laughing without consequence. But even in your dreams, you are cautious. Even in your sleep, you know to be careful what you wish for, because outside these walls, there is dust. There are fields and husbands and hunger, but inside there is at least the illusion of power. And sometimes, illusions are all that stand between a woman and despair. The waiting chamber may close at night, but the waiting never ends, and deep down you understand. It isn't the Pharaoh you're waiting for, it's meaning, it's memory, it's the chance to be more than an ornament in a palace full of perfect shadows. If the harem were a garden, it would not be one of soft petals and gentle sunlight. It would be a hedge maze, precisely trimmed, painfully maintained, and bristling with invisible thorns. Every concubine here wears silk, perfume, and the facade of civility. But beneath the linen lies calculation. Beneath every compliment, a contest. This is not a sisterhood. It is a battlefield dressed in softness. No blood is spilled, but reputations, hopes, and futures are quietly assassinated every day. By now, you've learned the unwritten rules. Beauty is not rare here. It's the baseline, the cost of entry. To rise above the rest, you need more strategy, restraint, and above all, control. You watch the women around you not for inspiration, but for intel. Who does she whisper to? Who avoids her gaze? Who received a new necklace last week, and what did it cost her? There are cliques, of course, tight circles of women orbiting whoever last spent a night in the royal chamber. These little empires function as gossip networks, protection squads, and echo chambers. To join one is to inherit its alliances and enemies. To remain independent is to remain vulnerable, but invisible. You, for now, choose the latter. You smile at everyone. You nod thoughtfully when asked for opinions. You offer compliments that are sincere enough to sound real, vague enough to be safe. You look rested. Your hair is especially elegant today. Nothing too direct, nothing too traceable. But you are always listening. A careless word, a shared look, a servant's accidental mention. These are the threads from which power is woven. The most dangerous concubines aren't the loudest or the prettiest. They are the quiet ones with perfect posture and perfect recall. They know who said what, when, and to whom. They know that the Pharaoh's mother doesn't trust one of the astrologers, that a new girl from the north cries when she's alone, that the perfume used by a certain senior concubine is suddenly out of stock. Coincidence? Never. Some women even keep wax tablets hidden beneath their mats. Not diaries, nothing sentimental. These are ledgers of leverage, records of favors, observations, tiny betrayals. A trail of breadcrumbs leading to future advantage. And then there are the invisible wars, no open insults, no shouting, just praise delivered with surgical precision. She's so nurturing, no wonder the Pharaoh finds her calming. Or, I've always admired how brave she is. Most women would never wear their hair like that. A smile, a nod, a wound. Occasionally, someone new will make the mistake of being sincere. She'll open up, share her past, ask for help. By morning, her secrets are folded into gossip, her vulnerabilities painted onto her back like a target. She learns quickly, or she fades. You've learned to give just enough of yourself to appear open, and no more. Trust here is not earned. It is manufactured. Alliances are transactional, friendships fleeting, and yet you play the game with grace. Because if you don't, you're out of the game entirely. Then one day, everything shifts. It starts with silence. A strange, sudden vacuum. Conversations dim. Movement halts. Even the birds outside the window seem to still. You know what it means. She is coming. The great royal wife. She is not just the Pharaoh's spouse. She is the shadow of power itself. The embodiment of legitimacy, of dynasty, of everything none of you are allowed to become. Her jewelry travels in its own chariot. Her presence is felt before her footsteps are heard. No one speaks. Everyone adjusts. Ankles crossed, spines straightened, eyes modestly lowered but alert. Some pretend to be absorbed in a scroll. Others delicately rearrange flower vases. No one wants to be seen trying, but everyone wants to be seen. And then she enters. Older than you, certainly. Not old, but seasoned. Her face carries the serenity of someone who has been observed for decades and forgotten none of it. Her eyeliner is darker, her headdress taller, her expression impossible to read. She walks the room slowly, like she owns the air. And in many ways, she does. She says nothing at first. She doesn't need to. Her eyes move from face to face, pausing on some a second too long, skipping others entirely. You hold your breath as her gaze passes over you. You are neither noticed nor dismissed. Perfect. When she speaks, it is with terrifying subtlety. I do hope the younger women are choosing their words wisely these days. That's it. No names, no accusations, just a soft warning that detonates 3 social structures in a single sentence. She smiles, barely. Then she turns and leaves. Only then does anyone exhale. You've survived the visit. Today, at least you are beneath notice. That is victory. That is safety. But you also saw how other women shifted, who leaned forward, who stilled, who flushed. You file it away. Every reaction tells you something, because while she may not visit often, her presence lingers for days like a scent in the corridor. When she leaves, everything changes. Conversations resume, but softer. Eyes flicker, calculating. A hierarchy has been reasserted. A reminder delivered, you may be lovely, but you are not the queen. Not yet. Not ever. As the sun melts into the horizon and the Nile reflects firelight from the palace torches, the harem transforms once again. Not physically. Its walls remain the same, its cushions still soft, but something in the air sharpens. You feel it in your shoulders, your stomach, your breath. It is the hour of possibility, and with it arrives a very particular kind of torment. Maybe tonight. That phrase rules everything now. It whispers in your ear as you reapply perfume for the third time. It dances through the corridors as women retie their hair, realign their robes, check the mirror one last time. Hope, here, is a drug. And tonight, you're high on it again. Your body is already tired, but you can't show it. Not now. You settle into your pose, legs tucked just right, arms draped, expression unreadable. To be noticed, you must appear radiant. To be chosen, you must appear effortless. To survive the disappointment, you must be both. The youngest among you are still learning how to mask their hunger. They chatter softly, casually mentioning dreams that just happen to feature cobras, crowns, and royal kisses. Coincidence, of course. One hums the Pharaoh's favorite song under her breath. Another sighs dramatically while holding a lotus flower, as if prophecy is waiting on her lips. The older ones know better. They sit back, composed and unbothered. Their faces are unreadable, their wine sipped with the precision of someone who knows how not to hope too loudly. They've played this game too long. Their silence is both weapon and armor. And you smile. Not wide, not smug. Just enough. Inside, your mind is rehearsing everything. How to rise gracefully if your name is called. How to react with pleased surprise. How to walk without trembling. To keep your voice soft, your scent lingering, your eyes kind. You've practiced it in the mirror. You've whispered lines into your pillow. You've imagined it more times than you can count. The servant enters. The room tightens. No one moves, but the stillness becomes rigid. She carries no tray, no wine. She's here for one thing. She clears her throat and whispers a name. The name. But not yours. You smile anyway. You lift your chin. You sip your wine. It tastes like dust. The girl who was chosen rises. She glows. She floats. She doesn't look back. Why would she? This is her night. You remain seated. Your fingers clench the cushion just once, just briefly. Then you resume the mask. You've been passed over. Again. Later, when the waiting ends and the room empties, you remove your adornments with mechanical grace. No tears, no drama. That's for amateurs. You slip into your nightrobe and lie on your mat, staring at the ceiling you now know like a lover. Music echoes from the upper levels, soft and mocking. You wonder if she's playing the harp, or if he is laughing. Or sleeping. You tell yourself it doesn't matter. You tell yourself maybe tomorrow, because that's the ritual. Not the baths, not the perfume, not the eyeliner. The ritual is this: to believe the next night will be different. To hope, even when it hurts. Now the palace is quiet. Lamps flicker low. The harem enters its final transformation. Dream time. You lie awake longer than you should. Around you, other women whisper. They speak in low tones about dreams they've had. Flying cats, glowing rivers, falcons that spoke in riddles. Nonsense, maybe. But in this place, dreams are currency. A single, well-placed vision can change your fortunes. One girl dreamt the queen gave her lotus blossoms. No one believed it, but suddenly she's seated next to the queen's cousin during embroidery lessons. Influence doesn't need to be real. It only needs to be repeated. You have your own dreams, of course. Some honest, some crafted. You keep a small scroll hidden beneath your mat. A dream journal of sorts. You've written, "I dreamt of the Pharaoh, but he turned into a hawk and flew away." You don't know what it means, but it feels important. You'll ask someone, or pretend you already did. Your closest friend whispers her own. A cat walking backward, a golden crown. "Definitely Bastet," she says, nodding. A sign of power coming. You both pretend to believe it. You must. Because here, belief is more sustaining than truth. The night wears on. You dream of being chosen, not for your beauty, but for your voice. You dream of leaving, not the palace, but the waiting, of being seen clearly once, and not for what you wear or how you walk. You dream of a life with choices, not choreography. But even in your dreams, you never raise your voice. That lesson runs deep. By your 14th bath and your 29th fig, you begin to wonder, what exactly is freedom? Not the obvious kind. You already know you can't leave. The palace is beautiful, yes, but it has no doors for women like you, only corridors that circle back into themselves, paths that end in silk and silence. You are technically not a prisoner, but try stepping past the guard at the gate with your hair out of place or your robe too plain and see how far you get. You can't marry unless the Pharaoh forgets you exist long enough to permit it. You can't speak plainly unless you're singing. And your opinions? They are decorations, like the bangles on your wrist, shiny but not necessary. So again, you wonder, what is freedom here? Sometimes, in hushed corners after too much wine, the older concubines speak of their lives before. One recalls buying her own fish at the market. Another mentions walking barefoot through a wheat field, feeling the grain brush her calves. Small things, distant things. They speak of them the way priests speak of lost cities. But here, you wear silk. You sleep on clean linen. You are safe, fed, perfumed. On paper, you have everything. And yet you are owned by a system, by a gaze, by a hope that renews itself each morning and rots by nightfall. Still, within this silk-lined cage, some women find strange versions of power. Not in the traditional sense. No one here commands armies or signs decrees. But they nudge decisions from behind a curtain. They whisper names to the queen's cousin. They suggest which poem gets recited during court festivals. Their touch reshapes dinner menus. Their silence is strategic. Their smiles shift allegiances. You remember the girl you used to be, the one who chased goats through dust, whose skin was browned by the sun, whose hands were rough, whose laugh was untrained. She was free. But this version of you? She can move 3 noble families with a glance. Is that better? You don't know. What you do know is that here, freedom isn't given. It is performed. The better your performance, the fewer questions people ask. And the fewer questions, the freer you feel. Or at least, you can convince yourself that's the case. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. But time, like incense, burns slowly through everything. One day, you won't be here anymore. Maybe you'll be replaced by someone younger, with tighter skin and wider eyes. Maybe the Pharaoh will tire of women altogether and devote himself to falconry or pyramid design. Maybe, if you're lucky, you'll be quietly reassigned to a villa in the countryside, where your only duties will be embroidery and dignified boredom. And then comes the real question, the one no one dares speak aloud. Will anyone remember you? Not in poems or statues, certainly. Those are for generals, gods and men who invent new methods for farming barley. You might exist in a court ledger somewhere. Line 42, extra rose oil for concubine, name partially illegible. That's your grand historical footprint. You won't get a shrine. You won't be buried with your own priest. But you hope. You hope that the queen remembers you as the one who never flinched during eyeliner. That a junior concubine imitates your posture one day without knowing why. That a servant tells her daughter she once made the Pharaoh laugh, like it means something. And maybe it does, because sometimes legacy isn't grand. Sometimes it's just a memory passed between women like a secret recipe. A gesture, a voice, a name whispered in the hall when no one's listening. Maybe that's not immortality. But maybe it's close enough. On quiet nights, especially when the moon hits the courtyard just right, you let yourself imagine more. That someday, someone will find a scroll with your name on it. That a scholar will pronounce it badly, guess your story wrong, and hang your portrait in a dusty museum. But it will mean this: you were here, You outlasted rivals. You learned how to smile without blinking. You turned silence into a weapon. You lived in a palace, even if it never really belonged to you. And in a world where most women never left their village walls, you became a whisper in the house of kings. The palace sleeps, but the harem never truly rests. This is dream time, the final act in a day of performance, the only space where reality bends enough to allow secrets to speak. You lie still, but your thoughts flicker like the oil lamp shadows above you. Around you, women shift under linen, their voices low, their dreams louder than they know. No one dares speak boldly in the day, but now, just before sleep, the boundaries blur. This is when visions are traded like bracelets, fragile, beautiful, possibly false. Some murmur about animals that spoke in riddles. Others describe birds made of gold, or gods who offered lotus petals from silver boats. Absurd? Of course. But here, absurdity is strategic. You listen, you nod, and then you offer your own. You say you dreamt of a crocodile with a crown, floating down a flooded canal. Everyone nods with quiet reverence. One girl whispers that it must mean favor from Sobek. You don't correct her. You hadn't meant anything by it, but now, suddenly, it means everything. Dreams are currency in the harem. Unlike beauty or rank, they can't be confirmed. They cannot be disproven, and they can carry you, if not to the royal bedchamber, then at least to a better seat at breakfast. Some girls journal their dreams, not for reflection, but for reference. Tucked beneath mats and perfumed cushions are scrolls filled with strange lines and symbols. Eyes of fire at the river bend. A cobra sleeping beneath a harp. Some are real. Others are written retroactively after being told what the Pharaoh liked to hear. What matters isn't the dream itself. It's how you tell it, what it might suggest, what it might unlock. You have your own scroll, nothing elaborate. Just a list of half-truths and maybes. Flooded courtyard. Emotional pressure. Pharaoh turned into a fish. Unclear. The queen gave me honey in a bowl. Power incoming. They're guesses, all of them. But in this place, even guesses can become weapons if held correctly. Occasionally, you whisper one of these dreams to someone you trust or pretend to. She listens, nods, folds the knowledge carefully into her mind. Tomorrow she might repeat it, perhaps with embellishment, perhaps to someone who matters. If it comes back to you as gossip, altered but alive, you'll know it worked. You've played this game long enough to know which gods are safest to mention. Bastet for favor and grace. Hathor for fertility. Never speak of Set. Never claim a vision from Ra unless you're ready to defend it with everything. Those dreams can raise you or erase you. There was a girl once who claimed Ra appeared in her sleep and named her Blessed. She was beautiful, clever, and persuasive. Within a week, she had a place near the queen. Within a month, she was gone. No one speaks her name now. You pull your blanket closer, the scent of crushed flowers lingering beneath your chin. Somewhere in the upper chambers, wind whistles through stone arches. It sounds like a flute left unattended. Someone is still awake. Maybe composing a dream worth sharing tomorrow. Maybe watching the moon, wondering the same thing you are. Is any of this real? You think of the field you left behind. The goats. The open sky. The way your name used to mean something, not promise, not strategy, but you. Here, your name is an accessory, a whisper, not a statement, something used when convenient, then forgotten. But tonight, you whisper it to yourself. Softly. Just once. And for a moment, it feels like yours again. In the harem, the word freedom is both a memory and a myth. It is whispered sometimes, never loudly, and always by the older ones, in moments when they think no one is listening. You hear it passed between sips of wine, spoken like a fading perfume note. I remember when I could walk to the river without permission. I remember choosing what color to wear. These aren't complaints, they're confessions, ghosts of lives no one expects to reclaim. You nod when they speak because you understand the ritual. Everyone here remembers a moment when they still belonged to themselves, even if it was brief, even if it was blurry, even if it hurt. And you? You remember too. You remember chasing birds through reeds barefoot, your hair tangled by wind and your laugh untrained. You remember choosing not just what to wear, but whether to smile. You remember your name being spoken as something meaningful, not measured. Here, in the palace, you have everything. On the surface, the walls are polished, the linens are soft. The trays of fruit arrive with the precision of ritual. Your skin is bathed in almond oil, your eyes lined with powders more expensive than grain. From the outside, you are the image of luxury, but beneath the gold, there are rules, unspoken, unbreakable. You may not leave, not unless the Pharaoh sends you away, and that's not escape. That's exile. You may not speak your mind unless your mind has been rehearsed. You may not love, not without permission, and never without risk. You may not even cry too loudly. Someone might hear, someone might remember. And here, memory is dangerous. So instead, you perform. You perform obedience like it's prayer. You offer beauty like it's a dowry. You perfect the art of existing without weight, of being lovely without substance. And yet, within these limitations, something strange happens. Not resistance exactly, but something subtler. Women adapt. They learn where the rules bend, where silence can be louder than speech, where a compliment can carry a dagger's edge. Some find influence. Not officially, never directly, but a comment placed with the right scribe, a smile shared with the Queen's cousin. A suggestion made during poetry hour that somehow finds its way into the Pharaoh's evening. A ripple, a gesture, an invisible push that moves something solid. You learn to navigate these currents. You learn that freedom here does not look like escape. It looks like opportunity wrapped in compliance, a favor owed, a word remembered, a mistake forgiven. And so, your world becomes a stage, and on that stage, your power is in the performance. You are never alone, but always isolated. You are never in chains, but always constrained. And yet, some days you feel powerful. Not because you command anyone, but because you've survived this long, and you're still standing, still smiling, still beautiful enough to be considered. That too is a kind of power. You look in the mirror, not the bronze one handed to you by servants, but the one you see in your dreams, and in it you are no longer a figure waiting to be chosen. You are the one choosing, if not your fate, then your form, if not your future, then at least the shape you take while waiting. You know you may never leave these walls, but you also know that not all prisons have guards. Some are built from compliments and cushions, and sometimes freedom is simply knowing that. It begins slowly. At first, you don't even notice. A servant forgets your favorite scent. A new girl is seated closer to the front during the harp lessons. A compliment once given without thought is now delivered with a pause, or not at all. Small things, barely there. You tell yourself it's nothing. You adjust your earrings. You try a darker kohl. You angle your head slightly differently during breakfast. But it lingers, that feeling. Like a breeze that wasn't there yesterday, brushing at your back, nudging you gently toward the edge of the stage. And then one day, it becomes clear. The new girls have arrived. They are young. Of course they are. Younger than you were when you first entered. Their eyes are wide, their laughter too loud, their bodies still learning the slow choreography of harem life. They ask too many questions. They smile too eagerly. They don't yet know how to whisper. You watch them, not with jealousy, at least not at first, but with something deeper, something quieter. Recognition. You see your old self in their awkward grace. You remember what it was to arrive, to hope, to believe that proximity to power would make you more than what you were. And then you realize, to them, you're already part of the architecture, a fixture, a cautionary tale in silk. That knowledge cuts sharper than any dismissal. You're not pushed out, not explicitly. That would be merciful. Instead, the center drifts away from you. Conversations happen a few steps ahead. Invitations arrive late, or not at all. When the Pharaoh walks through the chamber, his gaze slides past you like you're furniture he's grown tired of. You're not banished, you are forgotten. Some women resist. They try too hard. Their smiles widen, their robes tighten, their voices grow shrill with forced charm. It doesn't work. Desperation smells stronger than myrrh. Others retreat, gracefully, bitterly, or silently. You choose silence. You begin waking earlier than the others, not to prepare, but to sit alone. You stop asking the servants to adjust the lighting during your readings. You read anyway. You memorize poetry not to impress, but because you like the way it tastes on your tongue. You begin to reclaim pieces of yourself, tiny and private. The way you walk, the way you hum old songs, the way you sometimes speak your real name aloud when no one's nearby. And still, life goes on. You're not dead, you're not useless, you are still beautiful. But in a different way now, a way that makes people nostalgic, not obsessed, reverent, not desirous. One day, you are called, not to the Pharaoh's chamber, but to the steward's hall. You are told, politely, that a villa has been prepared, not far, not near, a place to rest, a place to fade. You nod, because that is what you are expected to do. No one says exile, no one says done. They say transition, they say dignity, they say peace. But what they mean is that your performance is over. The curtains have closed, the music has stopped, and no one claps. You're allowed to pack. The younger girls offer soft smiles. One even weeps, out of politeness, not love. You leave behind the things that are no longer yours, the pearls, the perfumes, the place in line. You step into the sun for the first time in years, truly, fully. No guards, no mirrors, just light, and you breathe. For a moment, it stings. The air feels too raw, the brightness too honest, but then, relief.
Because the palace needed you only as long as you were radiant. But out here you are simply real. You are gone, not dead, not disgraced. Simply absent. No scandal, no farewell procession. Just a name that stops being spoken aloud. Your mat in the harem is stripped and reassigned. Your favorite cushion is passed to a girl who doesn't know its history. The servants fold away your robes and pack them with the methodical efficiency of people who have done this before. And still something lingers, not in grand ways, not in the manner of queens or priestesses, but in smaller, subtler signs, a gesture, a turn of phrase, a silence that lasts a little too long when someone mentions your absence. The younger girls begin to imitate your habits without realizing. One sits exactly where you used to sit by the window, arranging her arms just as you once did. Another adopts the scent you used to wear, though she claims it was her idea. A third recites the same poem you once made popular, slightly misquoting the final verse. You are not here, but you are not gone. The women who remain remember, not all of them fondly. Some still feel the sting of being outshone, outmaneuvered. Others remember you as the one who never raised her voice, never lost her smile. A few miss you like they would miss a moonlit breeze, noticed only once it's gone. Even the great royal wife pauses one evening near the harp. She picks up a comb that was yours, holds it in her palm a second too long, and then sets it down. She says nothing, but that silence is an acknowledgement. And sometimes when the Pharaoh walks the halls and passes the garden where you once sat, he slows, briefly, his expression unreadable, He doesn't stop. He doesn't speak, but he remembers. You've become a story now. In the harem, stories are told like lullabies and warnings. She was clever. She was patient. She once made the queen smile during the Reed festival. She was chosen more than anyone. She was never cruel. No one tells the full story. No one ever does, but your name is whispered, not daily, not by everyone, but often enough. And in this place that is immortality, because the palace forgets most things. Names, faces, feelings, time. But it remembers the women who made an impression, not with noise but with elegance. Not with titles but with grace. You didn't become queen. You didn't bear a royal air. You didn't rewrite history, but you bent it quietly. You lived in the margins and yet you left ink behind. Not a signature, a trace. In the end, the concubine is not merely a person. She is a role, a shape carved into the palace walls, a silhouette etched against torchlight and curtain. She is what happens when beauty is weaponized, when obedience is ritualized, when identity is sculpted by proximity to power but never granted it. She exists at the edge of the throne, close enough to touch it, never to hold it. And that edge, that invisible border between presence and absence, voice and silence, desire and denial, is where she lives. She is not unique. There have been hundreds, thousands, each with different names, faces, origins. Some from noble bloodlines, others sold from villages no one remembers, some ambitious, some terrified, some in love with the idea of being loved. But the palace molds them into one shape. It teaches them to speak softly, to walk slowly, to feel deeply, but never visibly, to be radiant but controlled, available but not assertive, desired but not desiring. It is a strange kind of death, a soft one, a hollowing. But within that hollow space, something survives, something stubborn, something that watches the Pharaoh's eyes and calculates his silences, something that finds power in stillness, that learns to wait without decaying. That part of her, the part no title could touch, outlives her role. The world outside doesn't see her as real. History forgets her name if it ever knew it. Records mark her only in numbers. 36th concubine, attended festival, no issue. But inside the harem and inside herself, she knows better. She knows she shaped the way others dressed. She knows she taught a song that was sung in the queen's hall. She knows she once made a god laugh, a mortal man who fancied himself divine. Yes, but in that moment she made him human. And maybe that is the most subversive power of all. To remind a king that he is only a man. To take up space in a system designed to erase you. To smile, not because you are empty, but because you refuse to let them see what you're hiding. She is a mirror, not of what is, but of what society wants to believe. She reflects male power without ever owning it. She reflects divine beauty while aging beneath it. She reflects obedience while cultivating secrets behind her eyes. And sometimes, when the moonlight hits a polished mirror just right, you don't see your face at all. You see what you fear. You see what you want. You see what you were never meant to know. Time moves differently outside the palace. There are no gongs to mark the bath hour, no sandals squeaking down polished halls, no anxious glances as servants announce who has been summoned. The days unfold in silence, stitched together by wind and the occasional creak of a door. You are no longer watched, and at first it's disorienting. No more need to perform. No need to count your smiles, to monitor the weight of your gaze, to analyze every word before speaking it. Here, beyond the harem, your body belongs to you again, though you're not entirely sure what that means yet. You wake when you wish. You walk when you feel like it. You eat alone, and you begin slowly to rediscover your name, not the title, not she who was favored, or the blue lotus, or whatever poetic nickname they once gave you, but your name. The one your mother spoke when calling you in from the fields. The one you haven't heard out loud in years. You say it now softly, like an incantation, and it feels like stepping into your own skin for the first time. There is no audience here, no rivals, no whispered threats disguised as compliments, just you and your thoughts and the weight of memory. You remember everything, The games, the victories, the humiliations, the glances that meant too much. The silk, the silence, the survival. And most days that is enough. But sometimes, at night especially, you wonder, did it matter? You didn't bear the Pharaoh's child. You didn't become his favorite. You didn't secure your place in the annals of court history. The songs written during your time mention other names, not yours. And yet, your presence shaped things. You softened the queen's fury once with a well-timed laugh. You stalled a courtier's punishment with a whispered comment. You taught a servant girl to read a fragment of poetry. You consoled a concubine whose brother died even though it risked your own position. You endured, and survival in that world was never passive. It was labor, daily, relentless, unacknowledged but powerful. Now in this quiet place your body begins to soften in new ways, not from fatigue but from peace. You allow your voice to rise without fear of how it lands. You begin to speak plainly. You write even if only for yourself. You learn to grow herbs. You mend old linen. No one asks you to be beautiful anymore, so you choose how to be. Some women who leave the palace try to forget it completely. Others cannot let it go. You walk between those paths, collecting pieces but not clinging to them. You do not speak of the Pharaoh unless someone asks, and even then, your answers are small, measured, true only in part, because some memories belong only to you. And the most dangerous power left in your hands is this: you get to decide what parts of the story live. No more curtains, no more audiences. The role is over. Now begins the life. You no longer live in a palace but in a house with windows that open wide to let the wind in. No guards stand outside. No bells chime to summon you. The air is not perfumed, but it is yours. You choose when to rise. You choose what to wear. Some days you choose silence. Others song. There is no one left to impress. And so you begin to wonder, who am I when I am not watched? At first there is uncertainty. You spent so many years becoming what others wanted to see: graceful, clever, sweet, mysterious. You wore your beauty like armor. You measured every breath. And now, with no audience, that costume falls away. What's left is strange, untamed, a little raw but real. You learn the rhythm of ordinary life. You walk to market, you barter for honey. You learn to grow bitter herbs. You get sunburnt, you laugh too loudly. It shocks you at first, the sound of your unguarded joy. But it feels good, clean. You begin writing again. Not the dreams you used to invent, but real ones. About the sea you've never seen, about the child you never bore but sometimes still imagine. You write about the past, but not to relive it, to understand it, to lay it down. And slowly people begin to know you, not as the concubine, not as a reflection of power, but as a woman who once lived in gold and now tends herbs and teaches girls to sing. They ask you questions. You answer some. Others you leave in silence where they belong. You become a legend, but not the kind carved in stone. You are the kind told over tea. She once lived in the Pharaoh's house. She never cried in front of anyone. They say she could silence a room with a glance. Some of it is true, some of it isn't, but you let the stories live their own lives now. You've lived yours. And at night, when the house is still, you lie beneath a blanket that smells of smoke and rosemary. You do not dream of being chosen. You do not dream of crowns. You dream of walking. Far, wide, you dream of the sea. You smile to yourself, not because you are remembered, but because you remember you.